Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, that made Shauna jump. Am I that loud? Good afternoon. It's a real pleasure to return to Kingsway Baptist Church. As many of you know, my wife Wendy was raised here. We were married here. We raised our 3 children here, and I was organist and choir director here for 23 years, nearly a quarter of a century. So our family has a long association with Kingsway, not to mention Wendy's parents, who were pillars here from the time the building opened, I guess. How providential that Ian, Gregory, is helping with the sound today. Ian, thanks for being here and making this possible for this program. Thank you very much. How special to be speaking from this lectern. You know, the organist is usually relegated to a bench, hidden from sight. We're like Santa Claus. You hear a lot about us, but you don't see us. Thank you for the opportunity for me to pay tribute to Paul Gregory. Paul was a stalwart supporter of my work here. He was a fount of knowledge about this organ, and most of all, a friend. He really appreciated what I did, and I am grateful for that. When you pour yourself into a project and one of the gatekeepers comes to the organ and consistently affirms your efforts, it makes it worthwhile. If Paul appreciated it, likely others did too. We had a very strong and vibrant music ministry here that we deliberately cultivated. Our choir numbered 26 to 32 members on a regular basis. And when I say regular, Thursday and Sunday, 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 for 23 years. Our candlelight service was televised twice. Good Friday was always big with a major choral work. Our spotlight on talent was a hit. We added the handbells, the men's chorus for Father's Day, all the hymn festivals we had. Oh my goodness. Paul was consistently expressing his gratitude for the work that went into these and the quality of these efforts. Paul loved the organ. Pat told me recently that many of their dates consisted of going to an organ recital. How romantic for Paul. He knew so many details of the great pipe organs in Canada and in the United States. He was here when this instrument was installed in 1964. It was built by Cassavant, one of Canada's largest builders of pipe organs, located in St. Hyacinthe, Quebec. So, the best way for me to pay tribute to Paul is through the organ. First, I would like to give you some fascinating details about this instrument. It is a treasure. And secondly, I would like to play several selections that will demonstrate the capabilities of the organ, both as a solo instrument and as an accompanying instrument. And I'm grateful to have Nancy Foster, longtime friend, with me for this presentation, as it makes it possible to show how solo instruments can be supported. First, let's become acquainted with this magnificent instrument. The most unique feature, just let me say, a sidebar here. When this organ was put in 1964, it was the talk of the town. There was a lot of buzz around this organ for 2 reasons. First of all, the unique installation on the inside walls of the chancel, which I'll talk about in a moment, and the nature of it, because it's what we call the North German style, or the Baroque style. Since that time, there are other instruments in Toronto now that have more of the Baroque qualities, but at that time it was unique, one of the first in the city, and there were, in those days, the CBC did a lot of concerts, and there were a number of CBC concerts showcasing this instrument. The most unique feature is that the organ is positioned completely on the inside walls of the chancel. Let me explain. When the church decided to add a pipe organ to the sanctuary, the question was, where will it go? The reason being that there was no organ loft or pipe room to hold the pipes. Now, normally, you see, if you can imagine the chancel area here without the organ here, there would be a kind of a window, probably up there, or possibly on this side, like so, with a facade to cover. And there's a room probably about the size of a small bedroom to hold the pipes. And when the architect designed this place, there was no provision for that. The architect had not included this in the blueprints, and there was no space allocated in the design of the building. So this is going to be an additional feature. One idea was to place the organ in the gallery at the back. There's plenty of room up there, although that did not seem to be very Baptist. An exception was First Baptist in Ottawa, which does have the organ in the gallery at the back. What needs to be done? Well, people like Rod Morrell will appreciate this, I think, as an engineer. Structural engineers were brought in to reinforce the walls. So you can imagine, in a normal building, you couldn't put this humongous amount of weight on a normal wall. So steel girders had to be put in on both sides to hold all of this. So you not only have the weight of the instrument daily, but then when the tuners are in walking around up in there, that's also additional weight. They wanted to put the entire organ mounted on the inside walls. Steel girders needed to be installed to carry the weight, and the tall cathedral window above the baptistry, it was a long and narrow window, a little bit like the one at the back, but this one was narrower. If you see pictures from before the organ was here, you'll see there's a beautiful, long, narrow Gothic window, which had to be removed, and they put a rose window up at the top, because, of course, the great division, called the Great Manual, was being put across the front. You might say, well, how do the tuners get access to the pipes? Well, there's a ladder, and if you've ever wandered around this church, down this corridor here, there's a ladder on the wall. And it's not any ladder. This is the Cassavant ladder for this organ, measured to fit. So when the tuners come, they climb up here. So the ladder goes up here, hooks on, and they lift 1, 2, or 3, depending on the size of the tuner, 1, 2, or 3 of the pipes. Just lift them out to make room for them to go in. And there's a little landing in there, and then they can walk along. So when you go inside, there are all the pipes. You know, you have a row of lettuce, and you have a row of onions, and you have a row of sunflowers. Well, then you just walk along, and you find which one needs help. So that's how it works. But that ladder is very important. So please don't use it for any other purposes, because it's, you'll be buying a new one if you don't use it right. It can be positioned so that by moving 2 or 3 of the smaller pipes, they are able to crawl in. Where does the source of air come from? Well, there's a motor in the basement, down near where the custodian's office is, or his room is, and the air is blowing up to the wooden chest. Now, this part here, this is all hollow. And in that are the pipes bringing the air up from the motor to go into the wind chests. During my 23 years here, we were diligent in having Cassavant come twice a year to do a tuning and major and minor adjustments. Consequently, it was always in good working order, and Paul supported this proactive approach. One piece of trivia for you. During my time, we did have a most unusual thing happen. The 3 largest pipes, the 2 largest on that side and the largest one here, were starting to collapse on themselves. And when you didn't notice it so much from the congregation, but when you were up in here, the bottom part, we call that the mouth. The mouth was becoming quite gnarled, I guess you'd say. and we were worried that these pipes would fall forward and cause an accident, either hurting a person or some of the furnishings. By checking further, we found that this would not happen because there were clamps at the back further up to prevent this. However, why was this collapse happening? You won't believe this. It was from metal fatigue. True, metal fatigue. In the 1960s, when this organ was built, Cassavan had found a new kind of zinc that was easier to work with and made a beautiful sound. However, they did not know that 30 years later, it would be subject to metal fatigue. It turns out that there were other churches in Canada that were experiencing the same problem. Now, let's hear this wonderful organ. The tonal design, as I mentioned earlier, is what in the organ world we call North German or Baroque voicing. I'd like to begin by playing a prelude and fugue by Johann Caspar Simon. I'm glad my name is not Caspar. That was one of the names of the three kings, wasn't it, that came to see the Christ child? Johann Caspar Simon. And his dates are 1707 to 1776. So definitely in the Baroque era. And Bach, you see, was born in 1685 and died in 1750. So here we have Simon, who was living in the second half of Bach's time, very Baroque in style, and I think you'll appreciate. This is going to show the bright Baroque nature of this instrument. So I think it'll speak for itself. Wendy graduated from the Rimsky-Korsakov School of Page Turning. And I need to call on my page turner. Thank you. Thanks to you, Wendy, for keeping me on track there. I'd like to play now one of the most famous melodies of Bach. Johann Sebastian Bach, as you know, wrote a huge amount of music for the world to enjoy for hundreds of years. And one of his pieces is the famous Arioso in F major. I'm sure you'll recognize it as soon as you hear it. And you will hear a completely different sound. You won't scarcely believe that this piece is being played on the same instrument. The Arioso in F by Bach. Thank you. Now Nancy's going to play for us a piece by Vivaldi. She's going to play the Gigue from Sonata Number 1. And as you know, a Gigue is a little dance, so it's not a particularly fast dance, but it's quite a bright piece of music. And the organ will be like a little soft chamber ensemble in the background. So if you can think of the two things happening, you have your solo instrument with a little small ensemble playing the backup. Nancy, please. Nancy and I have enjoyed making music for a long time. I'd like to play now a chorale prelude. When I played this for the postlude at the funeral of Phil Carpets, and the family asked me if I would play something that was very majestic and rich and full and had a lot of strength in it that really showed the power of the organ, and that was at Phil's request. So this is the piece that I played then. It's Eine feste Burg, a mighty fortress is our God. And you will hear another quality of the organ, the richness and the depth that you often don't hear on a regular basis. It was nice to play that piece again. I asked Nancy if she would play two contrasting pieces on the flute so that we could hear the organ in two different ways. And in this second piece that she's going to do two adagio movements, two slow movements by Pepys, also a Baroque composer from the end of the 1600s to the beginning of the 1700s. Two beautiful pieces of music. And I'm going to use the softest stops on the organ. So if you want to know what the softest sound is that this organ does, you're going to hear it in the accompaniment for these two adagios that Nancy's going to play for us now by Johann Christoph Pepys. How beautiful was that? Now, for a little touch of humor, I guess we haven't had much humor today. I'm going to play a piece based on Zacchaeus. You know, we all sang, when Zacchaeus was a wee little man. Hands up if you know that song. Oh, good. Well, when I'm playing this, if you feel like humming along, when the melody emerges, if you want to hum along or even sing the words a little, you're welcome to do that. When I was adjudicating the National Music Festival in Trinidad and Tobago, I was invited there twice actually. It's a big festival. I was there for a month in the middle of winter, which was quite wonderful. Not wonderful for Wendy because she did all the shoveling while I was away. But anyway, if you're familiar with Port of Spain, it's a capital city there, and they have a magnificent hall called the Queen's Hall. It's by the savannah there, and it's a big place like Roy Thompson Hall, but different, more like a shoebox, you know, with very raked seating. Anyway, I never encountered this at any festival anywhere else. When the senior piano people were playing Chopin or some of the great pieces, the audience hummed along. So here I am trying to concentrate on what the pianist is doing at the front. Meanwhile, and they love the music in Trinidad. Oh my, the place is full all the time. And so here was this humming going on behind. And so I said to my secretary, "What is happening?" And she said, "It's our way of saying that we like the playing." So I'm thinking, okay, the people all like the playing. I hope that I do. Anyway, it was lovely, wonderful playing. So we're going to hear Zacchaeus, and so the theme emerges several times. And so, as I say, when the time comes, but it has some little funny parts in between. Oh, I have to tell you one other thing about this piece. It only cost me 15 cents. Years ago, and I forget now whether I got it in Princeton, where it was, but anyway, you know how bookstores will have a table out for a sale, and they have a lot of old books they want to get rid of, and they're low price. You can buy a book for $1, buy a book for 50 cents or whatever. And the music store had the same thing for music. All kinds of discarded stuff nobody wanted to buy. And the prices were very good, like 35 cents and 50 cents and $1.50. So anyway, I came across this piece called Zacchaeus, and I thought, really? So I take a look. Sure enough, it's the old Sunday school song that's been, doctored up for the organ. So this music cost me 15 cents. The moral of the story is if there's ever a sale on, you want to check it out. I'd like to finish now with a piece that I played every Father's Day here. My father-in-law liked it. Len Vickers expected me to play it every year. We had a great time with the Father's Day here with the men's chorus, and so I did play this. But Paul loved this as well, and he loved it because Paul would always say to me, "Oh, I like the way you used the pedals today." Whether I put lots of pedal on for the last verse of the hymn, or whether I used lots of pedal in the postlude, invariably Paul would comment on that. Well, in this particular arrangement of the hymn, When Morning Gilds the Skies, there's quite a lot of pedal, and the pedal plays the melody. So at the end, you're going to hear this very, very majestic, rich melody being played by the pedals. A voluntary on When Morning Gilds the Skies. And I'll just tell you it was composed by E.L. Ashford. And for a long time I wondered, who is E.L. Ashford? Because I have quite a few really nice hymn voluntaries on hymn tunes written by this person. So I finally looked up to see who it was. It's Emma Louise Ashford. Because back in the 30s when she composed, only men composed. And women didn't compose in those days. So in order to disguise her writing, she always signed it E.L. Ashford. When Morning Gilds the Skies. First of all, thank you to Nancy for being part of today. It was just great to work with you again. Thank you also to Ian for having the sound on for us. And thank you for being here. It's nice to look out, and I think I call almost everybody by your name.
I can't let this moment go without saying what a wonderful concert this has been. It's touched us, our hearts deep within, and we will each go home today knowing that we have been blessed. So Mel, again, I know Linda thanked you earlier, but after hearing this beautiful concert, I'm just really overwhelmed and grateful that you have joined us today. And to God be the glory. And Nancy, thank you.